Welcome to the Walk Around Podcast. Our goal is to share with you the insights, the skills, the processes, and the leaders that are influencing the retail automotive landscape today. Danny, I felt like I just did that intro in like my best, cover, like voiceover thing.
Yeah.
Did that sound okay?
No, it was good. You brought it.
It was good. That was
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
10 out of 10, 11 out of 10. I've been working on it.
I like that one.
I'm one of your hosts, Nick Funch, as always, joined by Danny. Just heard from Danny. What's up, Danny?
Yes, sir. Good to be here.
You ready for Thanksgiving this week?
Oh, yeah. And, one of the things that is always, you love to, when you think about Thanksgiving, you love to just imagine that moment when the dessert comes out. You've enjoyed the turkey, you've enjoyed kind of the sides of your choice, and the dessert comes out. And today we actually talked about what our favorite pies are.
Yeah.
And so you got to tune in to listen to that.
Yeah, so we have our special guest, Frank Abate. Frank is a zone vice president for JM&A Group. Really a fantastic career with JM family. Fantastic story. Started at Mr. Moran's Pontiac dealership 30 plus years ago. We won't give specifics to give away any sensitive information, but really a fantastic conversation. Started with pies. I think we ended on the rest of the turkey dinner. But really, I think what I found really impactful was what to be thinking about and how to be thinking about it when it comes to aligning goals with kind of plans within dealerships. So I think listen for that. Anything you took out of the conversation, Danny?
Yeah, I think it's just, as we land the plane on this year, what are the things that are top of mind? What should you be thinking about? And we talked a little bit about just associate the culture and planning and pay plans as well. And so I think we had a great conversation.
Yeah. So let's get started. You'll also learn what squish squish is in this call or in this conversation. And we want to know what your favorite pie is too, or Thanksgiving meal. So leave us a comment, but enjoy this conversation. Frank Abate, Zone Vice President, JM&A Group. Frank, happy Thanksgiving. Appreciate you joining us. I think we should probably start with the most important question. What's your favorite pie?
My favorite pie. I would have to say pumpkin pie, but you have to put squish squish on top. Squish squish in my family is, as you know, comes out of the bottle.
Yeah.
And you have to make sure that you have the one with the most calories.
Yeah.
And I think that's been a family staple. And sometimes we open up the mouth and do the squish squish right in the mouth and without the pie, but certainly pumpkin pie with squish squish on top.
Well, normally we skip the pie in my house. Danny, I would go over to you. What's your favorite pie? We got to celebrate.
Yeah, I mean it's Thanksgiving week. We're in the holidays. I would have to go with pumpkin pie also. I think it's just a classic. It feels good. You feel like you're in the season. You get that flavor. Pumpkin pie out of this season just doesn't hit the same way. So you got to enjoy it while you're in the season.
Well, for me, pecan pie. I got a pecan pie is my favorite. It's a soft spot in my heart. Maybe a little ice cream, maybe a little squish squish. I don't know any of those things. But outside of pie, Frank, we got a lot to talk about. I think you have a unique perspective in our business. You have a unique perspective on retail automotive. You have a tremendous amount of experience in it. And, I guess I'm curious about when you think about a high performing showroom and kind of what that means, what are the drivers? What are the kind of consistent things that you've seen that lead to a high performing showroom?
Well, first of all, it's the resiliency of the dealer. Dealers they all have unique approaches, and knowing it's vital to stand out in their respective marketplaces, how to market to the consumer, and dipping their toes into waters that are new to them is refreshing. No pun intended. But such as engagements like with virtual deliveries and virtual F&I, more and more dealers are starting to see the true value in this relatively new concept. And that's just one thing. I was with a dealer group just the other day that's engaged in the process, and they've only been doing it 3 months, and they see the effectiveness of it. And they actually report out each day on how many virtual deliveries they've had. And I found that extremely refreshing because it's a relatively new concept, but now they're tracking it. So I look at the dealers that are on the cutting edge of things, and those are the ones that are really performing in really high performing dealers that have their pulse on things and want to explore. So also the other thing the high performers have in common is a stable workforce.
Mhm.
A key driver to high performance is employee satisfaction. We hear about that a lot today. It sounds the alarm when they hire people, they lose people, and it costs money to retain people. So or to hire them. So they understand the importance and they recognize we've done that for such a long time with our associates, and we've called them our most important asset. And that to us has thrived with us for a long time. And dealers are starting to see that. And that's the retail environment that they're successful implementing, or at least trying new ideas and these new initiatives. But it's the people that they bring into their dealerships that thrive on this new way of doing things. And they have to keep the associate happy, and in turn keep their consumers happy. So I like what I see, and yes, the pandemic was part of the reason to explore new ideas in the changing environment. So, but I think the pandemic just accelerated what we're witnessing today. So buckle up. I'm sure there'll be more changes on the horizon.
Danny, I feel like I've heard that before. People and process.
Yeah, I mean, and it's interesting because it sounds like, from the customer perspective, how do we lean into the digital process? And that's what kind of, in a lot of ways, they're looking to as maybe a more efficient way. There's a customer experience kind of play there. And then internally, your own associates, how do you look at your own culture? How do you look at the way that you take care of the people that work in your business and that experience? So on both sides of the transaction, how do we kind of elevate the experience? It sounds like is a big focus right now.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah. So, underneath, I think process or the people, I think there's been some core kind of fundamental pieces that help align the process and the person towards that goal. Like when you think about aligning some of those things, I'm certain kind of compensation plays a role, some incentive type things play a role in that. I think you alluded to the environment that they're given, whether that's a leadership exposure. As you've seen kind of the industry change, some of those things have stayed the same. Is that a fair assumption, Frank?
It is. But I think we all know this, being in this industry, that pay plans, timely incentives are keys to having successful, high-performing dealerships.
Mm-hmm.
You first have to know the culture of the store, though, before you start, drafting ideas for the dealer. And what I mean by that is, what are the key measurements for that dealer?
Mm-hmm.
Is it gross? Is it net? Is it a combination of front end, back end? Is it team centric? Is it individually based, etc.? So, but as far as the F&I component specifically, dealers look at, is it service contract penetration? Is it core product penetration? Is it total product penetration? Is it PVR? There are a lot of things that go into success. I see a lot of dealers now combining front and back
Mm-hmm.
to bring more unity to the deal. But once again, it's about the culture. And most dealers agree, though, that a balance in all of those elements is necessary for successful results. Equally important to understand the priority the dealers put on each of those components, because it varies from dealer to dealer. So recommendations that we put in place typically all have to do with making sure we understand what the dealers' key hot buttons are.
Yeah, it's so timely that you mentioned that. And I was involved in a conversation this morning with a customer, and they kind of asked, like, hey, we do understand each other's desired outcomes, right? And it occurred to me, like in that moment, I was like, I think I do. But now I'm like kind of being put on the spot here. And it was interesting because I'm glad we had the conversation, because like I felt there were two avenues I could go. I could assume that they were the same outcomes that I knew a year ago when we had the last discussion. And so I asked him, I said, well, I think I do, but in your own words, like, tell me what's important to you. And I wasn't trying to kind of play the game there, but it was interesting that their perspective on the outcomes they wanted had evolved, and kind of my approach hadn't, because I was still kind of focused on the discussion we had 10 months ago and not the key today. And it's helped, I guess, clarify the conversation. So, when you go into that, or when you think about those things, do you have some specific strategies you use to help kind of understand, or just get to a point where kind of you understand the outcomes that a dealer's looking for or a manager's looking for?
Yeah, I would think that, we know, we have a bag of tricks, if you will. I mean, we have a lot of different ideas, and being around for a while, I have a trove of them, and I share them with people that I work with, and you got to listen for keywords. And when you hear the keyword, you need to come out with that tool and share it with the dealer and say, this may work. Mm-hmm. Because like I said, each dealer, they look at our business a little differently. Although, you talk to dealers today, today it's not about volume. Today it's about gross profit. And I think it's happening organically because of the times that we're in and the environment we're in. So you got to be very careful, and you got to listen to the dealer. To your point, 10 months ago, it was a different industry. So, and now you still ask the same questions, but you feel you look for where the dealer is gravitating toward, and then that's where you go, and that's where you pull out that tool.
Yeah. And as you, I think there's another component here that's important is the customer experience, kind of in understanding how to kind of balance both, right? And give the customers the experience they want. Because it seems to me customer experience is ultimately going to drive the whatever outcome that the dealer is seeking, from a KPI. What are some of your thoughts there?
Well, obviously, customer experience, both on our end and then the actual customer, the dealer to consumer, is extremely important. You recall, Nick, as little as 10 years ago, mm-hmm. consumers used to get in their car, drive to 3 or 4 dealerships, and before they even made a decision, and the decision could come next month. Dealers are very smart. They're very smart. They know they have one chance to satisfy that consumer. And that's when they walk into that showroom door, because they've done all their homework. I like what I see, and I spoke about this earlier. Knowing the marketplace, knowing your marketplace as a dealer is vital. But you've got one shot, and they've addressed that with their people. We talked about, making sure you keep your employees happy, and that makes for a happy consumer. So they've got one shot, and they know it. One point, I think a consumer now visits 1.2 or 1.3 dealerships before they buy. So if they walk in your door, they're buying.
It's so funny you say that, Danny. I don't know if you can appreciate this, but I'm going to try to give some perspective here. There used to be a time when a dealer had meetings with newspapers and yellow pages to kind of outline their weekly, right? Because they were, they would have some engagement, some contract, and they would have, Wednesday afternoons or whatever, they would have the newspaper laid out with the pen and kind of doing it, or the yellow pages. Frank, I feel like I'm ringing a bell there. You've certainly seen some of that in your day, huh? I don't know if Danny knows what yellow pages are, but
that's a different world. That's a different
world. Yeah. For the people that advertise in yellow pages, I don't think you should buy. But I can remember starting out in a business, and when I was down at JM Pontiac, there was a McDonald's, which was like, I don't know, maybe a block down.
Yeah.
And I would go into that McDonald's and I would see people sitting at the tables in McDonald's with their newspapers open, and voila, they had a list of car dealerships they're looking at. And then that's where I would engage the customer. I said, why do you have the paper out? Just come see me.
Yeah.
And it's just funny the way you say that, but there are some dealers that still love the paper, depending on your audience. They may advertise.
That sounds like social media advertising. Frank, you were an early adopter of social media advertising.
There you go.
The McDonald's.
Yeah, social in real life. Just walk
That's
right
right.
over.
Danny, what are some of your thoughts here?
No, I mean, I think it's a common conversation, and it's common because it's important. What are we doing to pull the right levers? And it's different for every dealership. And I love that you say that, Frank. Like, what are your goals? What is your market? What's important to you? What is your product? And then pulling those levers to get the right mix of the customer experience that the customer today is expecting. It's not kind of a hope. It's not an aspiration. They're coming through the door with an expectation, and you have to rise to meet that. And so it's a good conversation. I'm curious, as we look, now we're right in the holiday season, looking forward to Thanksgiving and pumpkin pie and these kinds of things. As we look into 2022, what should dealers be thinking about? What are you recommending when it comes to kind of landing the plane on this year and starting up fresh a whole new year?
Well, we certainly look at the environment today, and here's where you need to be careful. Some may think, individuals are making too much money because of the unprecedented times, and I think a pay plan change, they think, is a pay plan change necessary for the coming year? Well, I'm here to say that you need to be very, very careful there, because I've been preaching, I've heard dealers preach that and have these crucial conversations with their associates that they need to make sure they save money and expect the pre-pandemic times to be a reality again, and that we shouldn't be going out brandishing new lifestyles because of the environment today. So I was at a meeting just the other day where the dealer brought up this very, very issue about pay plans. We haven't looked at them recently. Is it time to look at them? And I thought it was my time to speak up. And I brought up this very thing about it's important not to really disrupt what you have, but also the conversations are equally as vital to have with your associates to make sure that they don't go out and buy that $750,000 home when they can only afford pre-pandemic time a $500,000 home. So that's important, because if I'm not going to change your pay plan today because of how much you're making, whether you're in finance, sales management, general manager, service, whatever it is, then I shouldn't change it when pre-pandemic times come back. So very important.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. I think certainly kind of saving for to anyone, right? When times are good, put that away for kind of when the cycle potentially comes around the other way. I think the another thing is, like, there's a component of that relates to retail performance too. I think we're seeing this is just my perspective, we're seeing an environment where kind of scarcity of inventory is impacting performance, whether it's gross, whether it's product attachment rate, some of these things. Are there things do you expect that to continue, kind of the rate of growth to continue? Do you expect that to potentially pull back in kind of post-pandemic times? Just interested, I think, in your thoughts, because there's a certain amount of planning for next year that's budgeting some performance goals there.
Yeah, that's a very good question. In this same meeting, and it was a budget meeting for 2022, and looking at some of the numbers that were being thrown out, my caution was, don't get too excited if they level back to not where they were before,
right?
But maybe a little bit, higher than that. But these are lofty goals you have, but you need to have the expectation that one day when the microchip shortage is no longer a shortage. One day when your used car inventory isn't as costly and people aren't paying all the money for them, one day when people come into the F&I office and say, okay, I'm going to start negotiating again, you need to be prepared for that. So, but I think once again, dealers thrive in these environments. They know, they're nimble, they know how to shift. I said it before and I'll say it again. It's about people. Trying to keep your workforce intact is important for you, the culture, and also for the consumers, so that they see the faces that, it must be a great place to work if I continue to see the same faces.
Yeah, I think it resonates with kind of the dealer body as a whole, is this kind of entrepreneurial, resilient bunch. You mentioned it earlier, and I think they certainly understand the importance of kind of being innovative, being creative, whether it's with their people, with their customers, any of those things, and finding some kind of lever of consistency throughout. So yeah, I think that's fantastic. Any other thing? Is there anything else on your mind as you kind of looked at 2022? You talked about kind of the performance side. You talked about kind of saving for a rainy day. Anything you're kind of super curious or you've got your eye towards as you think about the coming year?
Oh, obviously, the buzz, the EV buzz.
Yeah.
You look at Rivian, you look at Tesla, and you look at their models. Look, we're a dealer-centric organization, and these don't fall in those lines. So I'm curious to see how many EVs that can rival what's out there on a non-franchise situation, and to see how they can help, the dealers can help, sell those to penetrate the market, so that they keep that franchise system intact. I'm curious to see what happens 2022 and beyond.
Yeah, for sure. Certainly, there is a tremendous amount of value in the dealer network and the value they provide, not only to consumers but to their communities and their local environments. And I think they're a resilient group as well, and it will be fun to watch. But I'm certainly excited about it. Danny, I guess I'm curious your thoughts on kind of the conversation, whether it's forward looking or kind of Frank today.
No, I think it's great, and we're asking kind of the right questions here. As you land the plane on the year, I think it comes down to understanding where you are in the market, understanding your priorities, and what are we doing to improve that experience, both for obviously the people that we hope come in every day and purchase a new vehicle, but also the associates at the dealership, and what can we do to make their lives better, and what can we do to keep smiles on their faces, so they've got smiles on their faces when the customers walk in. It kind of trickles down in that way. And I think always prioritizing that at the top of the list is a major key to success.
Yeah. So Frank, I'm curious, you have had a long career with JM&A, successful career. You've had the opportunity to influence a lot of associates internally and a lot of dealer associates and provide mentorship and support there. Is there anything, career advice either you were given that you'd love to pass along? Any leadership principles that kind of guide you that have helped you?
Yeah, that's a great question, Nick. First of all, I think I do have many guiding principles. One of them is to be humble.
Okay.
The other, be thankful, be trusting. And I understand that because a few people, almost, what is it, a little over or little under 33 years ago, decided to give me an opportunity. And one of them being Mr. Moran. And that I told myself I would never take anything for granted. And it has been my guiding principle through all these years. Even though there have been some ups and downs like everybody experiences, you learn to persevere because you never, ever forget your roots. You don't forget where you came from. And I think if that works for me, because it's the type of person that I am, but humble, thankful, trusting, you'll get far. you'll get far.
Awesome. And I think that's great perspective for all of us. Danny, if you don't mind, I'm going to introduce something new to the podcast. We're going to play a little, because it's Thanksgiving, right? There's a lot to like talk about with Thanksgiving. We're going to do a little speed round of questions here. I don't know how fast I'll be able to get the questions out, but Frank, just gut response, interested kind of in your response. So favorite Thanksgiving side?
Sweet potatoes.
Sweet, like, do you like sweet potatoes, like marshmallows on top and stuff?
No,
or just
sir.
like sweet potatoes?
Sweet potatoes.
Sweet potatoes.
Sweet potatoes.
And all right. How do you like your turkey? I mean, have you had smoked turkey, fried turkey, baked turkey? Like, what do you
baked
like?
And white only, please.
Baked, white only. Are you stuffing kind of guy?
Yes. Love stuffing.
Yeah.
Love stuffing.
Yep. Cranberries?
No cranberries.
No cranberries. Out on the cranberries.
No cranberries.
And what do you like to polish this off with? Beverage of choice.
A nice bottle of Quintessa.
There you go. Well, sounds like a Thanksgiving meal. And if you're enjoying that meal this week, enjoy it with your family and friends. Thank you, Frank, for joining us. To all our listeners out there, happy Thanksgiving. We're certainly grateful for you and grateful for Frank for being our guest this week. Thank you, Frank.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.